Erik Jones signed a multi-year contract extension with Legacy Motor Club, and there's a lot of Xfinity Series and Cup Silly Season dominoes that are expected to take place soon. What's going on, guys? It's Daniel, and welcome back to our video. We got some NASCAR and other motorsports stories discussed here today on the channel. Let's go ahead and just jump straight into those really quickly. We got a ton of paint schemes to take a look really quick. Let's jump into those really quickly. The first paint scheme we're taking a look at is Brendan Poole's 2024 YXN GXR1 scheme that we'll see this weekend at Michigan. I like this paint scheme a lot. The colors look really good. You've got some Spotify stuff on there as well. It looks pretty exciting, and I'm definitely looking forward to seeing on the racetrack this weekend at Michigan. The next paint scheme we're taking a look at is Carson Nosfar's 2024 Premier Ziegler scheme that we'll see this weekend at Michigan. It's a combination of both of the big sponsors that Carson Nosfar's had. It looks solid, and I'm definitely looking forward to seeing on the racetrack this weekend at Michigan. The next paint scheme we're taking a look at is Ricky Stenhouse Jr.'s 2024 Minute Country Crocs scheme that we'll see this weekend at Michigan. I think the colors are solid in my opinion. They're pretty good in my opinion. I like the red, I like the blue, I like some of the other stuff. JTG's been okay with their schemes. I'm looking forward to seeing on the racetrack this weekend at Michigan. The next paint scheme we're taking a look at is Chase Elliott's 2024 Design to Drive scheme that we'll see at Atlanta Motor Speedway. I like this paint scheme a lot. I love the ambitions that he does with this. This looks amazing. Chase Elliott has some good things with this kind of brand. I'm definitely looking forward to seeing on the racetrack. It looks absolutely amazing and beautiful in my opinion. The next paint scheme we're taking a look at is Bijan McLeod's 2024 Delgado Stone scheme that we'll see at Atlanta. I like the scheme a lot. I like the black, I like the white, and it's really awesome and great to see that Bijan McLeod does have a new sponsor for later this year at Atlanta Motor Speedway. And the final paint scheme we're taking a look at is Daniel Suarez's 2024 Jockey Infinite scheme that we'll see this weekend at Michigan. This is pretty much the same scheme that Ross Chastain had this past weekend at Richmond, only going to Daniel Suarez this time. But just like the Ross Chastain one, I think it's very interesting. I think it does look pretty good. Trackhouse has some great paint schemes. This one's no exception. I'm definitely looking forward to seeing on the racetrack this weekend at Michigan. And now we're going ahead and jump on to the next story of today's episode as we're talking about Crocs. As it was originally reported by Adam Stern earlier today, that Crocs is expanding its NASCAR licensing association with a new collection from its Hey Dude brand, with 5 pairs that will sell for $74.99 each. We already know that Junior Motorsports has their own set of Crocs from the Hey Dudes brand, and we're also expecting, I think, Kyle Larson, Chase and a couple other drivers that will have this Hey Dude brand going forward as well. Crocs, a major company as well. I think this is an absolute massive partnership, all things considered. I think it's pretty amazing. I think it's a pretty cool partnership and pretty exciting and great to see that Crocs is expanding their partnership with NASCAR. It's pretty awesome and exciting stuff overall, to be honest with you. And now we're going ahead and jump on to the next story of today's episode as we're talking about Morgan Barrett. As it was announced yesterday that Morgan Barrett will officially make his NASCAR Xfinity Series debut this weekend in Michigan, driving the number 53 car for Joey Gase Motorsports. Morgan Barrett was supposed to make his debut for JD Motorsports earlier this year, I think at Talladega or another track like Richmond, but unfortunately failed to qualify for that event. Now the 53 car will have to qualify its way in on owner's points, and with the weather being a little bit sketchy for this weekend, there's a chance this car could end up withdrawing. That being said, I do think Morgan's had talent. He's had a couple top 10s in the ARCA Menard Series, and honestly, this is a really great chance and opportunity to see what Morgan Barrett can do. They're going to have the Super Speedway package, which I think will help teams like Morgan Barrett's and the Joey Gase Motorsports organization. I think it's pretty cool to see that they're working with him, and it's a really awesome and great opportunity. Pretty exciting that Morgan Barrett will get to make his NASCAR Xfinity Series debut this weekend at Michigan. And now we're going ahead and jump on to the next story of today's episode as we're talking about Brad Perez. As it was announced earlier today that Brad Perez will drive the 45 for Alpha Prime Racing later this year at Kansas Speedway. Brad Perez has made select starts on the road courses, and every time he's been part of the 45 car, as noted, I think, by Ryan Pisana, he has finished inside the top 20 in every single start in the 45 car on road courses. This is going to be Brad Perez's debut on the mile and a half in the NASCAR Xfinity Series, so he's going to have a different type of track that he's going to have to master. But Brad is a very talented race car driver, and this year we've seen Alpha Prime Racing, especially on these mile and a half and bigger ovals, we've seen at times these cars have some pretty good pace and some pretty strong speed. I would not be shocked and surprised, especially of how chaotic the playoffs can be for Xfinity and how chaotic it's probably going to be as we get closer to the time. I think you could see Brad Perez have a very strong and a really solid run. So it's a great opportunity for Brad. I think he'll be very, very competitive. I think he'll have a chance and opportunity for top 20. And I think Brad Perez has a really great opportunity to run very, very well at Kansas later this year with Alpha Prime, considering their pace and speed has continued to get progressively better. And now we're going ahead and jump on to the next story of today's episode as we're talking about Frankie Munz. As it was announced earlier today that Frankie Munz will drive the 33 car for the Racing brothers in the ARCA Series this weekend at Michigan. This will be Frankie's only start with Ram in the ARCA Series. He has 2 more Truck Series starts scheduled for them in the number 34 car, I believe, later this year's schedule. I think for, if I'm not mistaken, the Bristol, if I remember correctly, and if I remember correctly, maybe Phoenix as well, but if I'm wrong on that, correct me in the comments. But I'm very happy to see that Frankie is back in the ARCA Series. He's had a lot of success there. He's had some top 10s, and to be fair, his 33 car, especially with Lawless Allen, who we're going to talk about in just a second, when we seen Lawless Allen get behind the wheel of this car's had top 5 in top 10 speed. I think, especially remember last year, Frankie Munz got a top 5 in this race. I could definitely see Frankie Munz having a really big standout and great performance this weekend with the team. I would not be surprised if he could have an outside chance and opportunity to maybe steal the win, though you do have Connor Zilisch in the field, which he's going to be the favorite. I don't think William is eligible to run. I think Taylor Gray or Tanner Gray is going to be in that 18 car this weekend. So he's going to have some big competition, same with Andres Perez, but I think that Frankie Munz could have a shot for top 5 this Friday evening at Michigan. I think we'll have a good chance and opportunity to get it done this weekend at Michigan. And now we're going ahead and jump on to the next story of today's episode as we're talking about Lawless Allen. As it was officially confirmed yesterday that Lawless Allen will in fact drive the number 15 car for AM Racing for select races in 2024. His Xfinity Series debut will be this weekend at Michigan in the number 15 car, and then also from reports have suggested he will also make a start at Atlanta Motor Speedway as well. Lawless Allen has been driving full-time in the Truck Series this year for the Racing brothers and has made select starts in the ARCA Series for the Racing brothers as well. Now, I really don't rate Lawless Allen that highly as a driver. He's obviously taken over for Hailie Deegan. We know Hailie Deegan lost her ride a couple weeks ago, back around the time he went to the Chicago Street Course. She lost her seat, and she is still looking for a ride for the 2025 season. There is a chance she could come back at some point before the end of this year, but that's unknown at this point. Then they had Josh Berry come in and Joey Logano come in for one race as well. I think Lawless Allen is going to struggle, unfortunately, to be honest. I'm not really expecting him to set the world on fire, to be honest, because this 15 car has struggled a lot. I feel like if you want to see where this equipment is going to perform very well, you absolutely need to get a Cup Series driver behind the wheel to kind of judge or gauge where you're going to be at. It's a great opportunity for Lawless to make a couple select starts, especially with the kind of being super speedways, which I think will help, even though we did see it in Indy where there's a big crash on lap number 1. It's also going to be very difficult to pass for Lawless. So I'm not really expecting much from Lawless this weekend. I think he'll struggle a bit, and I think over the next couple races that he runs, I don't think he's going to run very well. I think he will unfortunately struggle in the 15 car in the next couple races that he runs. And now we're going ahead and jump on to the next story of today's episode as we're talking about Porsche. As it was announced earlier today that Porsche will officially not enter F1 going forward. They have cut their ties and they will not be entering F1. Remember, they were one of the manufacturers that was rumored to be working with Red Bull, and they were in talks and negotiations to work with Red Bull for 2025 and 2026. However, those deals have fallen through for one major key reason. We know Ford is going to be working with their Cosworth engine. They're going to be bringing that back into Formula One for the first time, I believe, since 2002 and 2003, and they are going to be working with Red Bull starting in the future. They will not have Adrian Newey, though, to help them, so they're probably going to struggle. Porsche had also been in the rumors to go to that Audi organization, but we know Audi's coming in. Matteo Bonetto's working with them, and we know there's some big moves coming for this organization going forward. We know they're going to be keeping the driver lineup at Red Bull there. Now, will Porsche ever come back potentially to F1? Maybe, who knows? We know that they were talking maybe going to World Endurance Championship and other forms, but I don't know if they're soon, of course, in the World Endurance Championship. They were looking to go to IMSA. They also denied that. We're going to talk about that here in just a little bit. but they, unfortunately, will not be entering Formula One going forward. Had Ford not come in and work with Red Bull, I do believe that they would have been the manufacturer working with Red Bull and building their own engines, though of course Red Bull does build their own engines, but I think Porsche really wanted to come into Formula One, and I think it'd been really exciting and cool to see this happen, but unfortunately, like I mentioned and said, they will not be entering Formula One with Red Bull anytime soon and not come into Formula One in the future. And now we're going ahead and jump on to the next story of today's episode as we're talking about the CW. As on Twitter, the CW officially put out not only their logo for their NASCAR Xfinity Series coverage, but they also put out the trailer for their Xfinity Series coverage. Now remember, it was announced about 5 or 6 weeks ago that it was announced that they will begin covering the Xfinity Series starting on September 20th. So a little over a month from now, they are going to begin covering the NASCAR Xfinity Series. The CW will do a lot of the focus, and they're trying to transition a little early to try to get everybody prepared for next year. Because the Xfinity Series from September 20th on to I think 2023 or 2033 or 2032, or 2031, I should say, they will be on the CW. The CW, every single race will be on main national TV, so every single one of you that does have an antenna will get the chance and opportunity to be part of that. Rick Allen is going to be the lead commentator for all the NASCAR Xfinity Series races, but after we get to Daytona, he will no longer be calling the NASCAR Xfinity Series. The first race will be at Bristol Motor Speedway, which will be the cutoff race, and in the final 7 to 8 NASCAR Xfinity Series races are going to be televised on the CW. I'm really excited for this partnership. We do not know who is going to be in that broadcast booth for 2025, but I do think it's pretty exciting and great to see that the CW will get to work with the NASCAR Xfinity Series. We are expecting the CW Xfinity will be the main partner for the secondary series for 2025, but they're looking for a new premier sponsor, potentially for 2026. I personally think they should call it the Xfinity, not Xfinity, but go back to being rebranded as the Busch Series after this year. I think it's pretty cool to see nonetheless, and I think the trailer was really, really great, and it's cool to see that the CW will be going to and will be broadcasting the NASCAR Xfinity Series for the remainder of the year in about a month or so. And now we're going ahead and jump on to the next story of today's episode as we're talking about Dodge. Now, if you saw this Motorsports.com article written by multiple people from Motorsports.com, you saw that Peugeot says that the visibility for Dodge would be better fitted in NASCAR than be fitted in IMSA. There have been talks and speculation that Peugeot was looking to have a rebranded hypercar brand going to IMSA, as of course they're going to be part of the LMDH group. But it sounds like Peugeot is going to be fully focused potentially on the World Endurance Championship, and they're not going to be going to IMSA. Obviously, Peugeot is owned by one of the big, I think, Chrysler brands, if I remember correctly, and Dodge, of course, is part of that Daimler Chrysler brand, if I remember correctly as well. Now, Dodge has been in the rumors about being a manufacturer in NASCAR for a very long time, but those talks had fallen through. They were talking to RFK Racing about bringing him over to Dodge, considering Brad had a lot of success with Dodge for those few years when he drove for Team Penske from 2010 to 2012. When he drove there before they switched over to Ford, starting in 2013, they did have a lot of success with Dodge. And I think a lot of people would really love to see Dodge come back to NASCAR in the future. I think a lot of fans would be really excited and would have a lot of fun with that. Do I think it's going to happen? Probably not at this point. But the fact they bring it up is very interesting. We know that they're doing electric stuff among other things, but a lot of these car brands are backing away from doing the electric stuff, and they're kind of going toward other stuff because we really don't know where the car industry is going to be a few years down the road. So nonetheless, it's good to see they're kind of open to going to NASCAR. Do I think they're going to go to NASCAR? Probably not at this point, to be honest, at least for the near future. But it is very interesting to hear they've had talks and conversations, and they seem to be at least a little interested about maybe coming to NASCAR in the future. So we'll see what happens in regards to that. Maybe they do change their mind and they do come to NASCAR, but it doesn't sound like right now they are going to be coming over. I love to see it happen. Trust me, I think a lot of fans be happy as well, but I don't think Dodge is going to be coming to NASCAR, at least for the near future, and I think they're going to be focusing on other stuff like the NHRA, which has a lot of visibility as well. And now we're going to jump on to the next story of today's episode as we're talking about the Richmond TV ratings, as it was reported by Adam Stern on Tuesday that USA got a 1.2 rating and 2.22 million viewers for the Cup race at Richmond. That is down from a 1.4 TV rating and 2.43 million viewers in 2023, being about a 5 to 10% drop in the ratings, and same thing with the viewership as well. But he does note, and this is very true, that the Olympic closing ceremony was going on during the time. And this was, according to Adam Stern, the most watched non-Olympic sporting event on TV. To have still over 2 million people tune in to a USA broadcast is still very, very huge. Now, do you want that number higher, especially with TV negotiations? Well, not TV negotiations, but charter negotiations going on, among other things? Absolutely. You want as many people tuned in as well, considering we are transitioning to Amazon for 2025. But I think, considering what was going on and the implications of having that going on, I think that this is still a very solid and good number to see. Now, will we see that number go up going in the future? I think, especially with the Austin Dillon stuff and how many people outside of NASCAR have been talking about how much promotion the stuff's been getting, I do imagine when we get to Michigan, which will be on USA, by the way, I do think the numbers will go up a little bit. The weather could be a factor, so that could affect how good the ratings are for this. Nonetheless, I think the ratings for this weekend were pretty solid, all things considered. I think the numbers are pretty good, and hopefully we do see those numbers go up. Again, I have to remember the Olympics were going on at the time, and I saw today that I think 30.7 million people on average watch most of the Olympics, which is, I think, higher than the last time. Might have been lower, not entirely sure, but the numbers were pretty solid for the Olympics this year, and of course, everybody's focused on that, including from the closing ceremony as well. So nonetheless, I think the numbers are pretty solid, all things considered, and those are the TV ratings for this past weekend at Richmond. We're probably going to see more of these coming out for Michigan and other dates, depending on Sports Media Watch, what kind of they release at this point, and what the TV numbers are. But the Richmond TV ratings are officially out, and honestly, I think the numbers for this weekend are pretty good, all things considered. And now we're going ahead and jump on to the next story of today's episode, as we're talking about David Malukas, as it was shockingly announced earlier today that David Malukas will be leaving Meyer-Shank Racing at the end of this year and will be joining Foy Racing starting in 2025. And according to the announcement, this is a multi-year deal. Dave Malukas is shockingly leaving, which is very, very surprising, and I don't think anybody in the IndyCar paddock really had this in their cards. Dave Malukas has been very impressive in his short time in IndyCar through the last couple of years, and we know how good Foy Racing's program is, basically on the shorter ovals. Remember, Foy, they have a pretty major technical alliance with Team Penske. Apparently, Team Penske really likes David Malukas, though Dave Malukas has gotten into drivers like Joseph Newgarden and Scott McLaughlin, who of course drive for Team Penske. But Dave Malukas obviously was supposed to drive full-time for Aaron McLaren for 2024. That did not end up happening, got released early, and got the opportunity with Meyer-Shank. I think a lot of people expected he was going to come back to Meyer-Shank for 2025. That being said, I think this is a very solid lineup next year for Foy. I know David Lamb mentioned this. There is a chance that they could have a 3-car program with Stingray Robb coming back as well. They did not announce what the future of Santino Ferrucci is either, but we do expect that Santino more than likely will be back with Foy as well. And again, Dave Malukas is very good on ovals and has gotten better on road courses. And look where Santino's in the standings too. He's inside the top 10. We could see Dave Malukas, and I would not be surprised or shocked if Dave Malukas next year wins the Indianapolis 500. That's what Foy really cares about in the 14 car, which Santino Ferrucci currently drives. That's won the Indy 500 with Foy and, of course, Kenny Brack. So I think that Dave Malukas going over to Foy, this is a really strong combination, a really strong pairing, and I think Dave Malukas could end up winning a race in the future, and he could be a candidate long-term to maybe replace Will Power to go over to Team Penske, though Miles Rowe is interested in moving up in the future as well. We do think he'll stay in the NXT team more likely next year, but I think Dave Malukas is a really solid driver. This was shocking today, but honestly, this is a very positive, shocking move, and I'm very happy, nonetheless, and very glad to see that David Malukas will be going to Foy next year. I think he is going to do a very solid and great job, all things considered, and I think, especially with the wrist injury, I think Dave Malukas has done a great job, and I think he'll do a very awesome job at Foy in the 2025 IndyCar season. And now we're going ahead, jump on to the next story of today's episode as we're talking about Shane Van Gisbergen. Now, we kind of already talked about this on the channel this past weekend, but it was confirmed by Bob Pockrass yesterday that Shane Van Gisbergen, in fact, will have a new crew chief for the remainder of 2024, as Bruce Schlicker will no longer be the crew chief on the pit box for him. We'll get to Bruce Schlicker in just a second. His new crew chief is going to be Kevin Walter. Kevin Walter has been the crew chief all year for Josh Williams, and they have struggled a lot of this year so far. He will have Eddie Pardue, that being Josh Williams, will have Eddie Pardue as a crew chief for the remainder of this year before potentially Josh Williams may not or may be back at the organization next season. Now, why is this happening? Well, according to what I think his wife had said, Amy Schlicker, she said there's some family stuff going on, and he wanted to focus on being a family man. They were looking to maybe finish the whole entire year before it happened, so he made the decision himself to go ahead and step down, and Bob Pockrass had noted that as well. This is honestly a good thing, spending time with your family, especially with the grind of how long these seasons are. I know the Xfinity Series season is not as long as the Cup season, but you look at what Bruce Schlicker has done over there at Kaulig Racing for a very long time. He's gotten 3 wins with Shane Van Gisbergen. He's won with Jeb Burton. He, of course, has won with AJ Allmendinger, and he's won with other drivers as well. I think that as much as disappointing to see Bruce Schlicker leave, I think it's good that he made the decision on his own. Now, what does this mean for Shane Van Gisbergen? He is going to have to relearn a lot of different things with a new crew chief that doesn't have as much experience working with a driver like Shane Van Gisbergen. Yes, they are in the same shop, but obviously Trackhouse Racing is helping in a big way with Shane as well. So I think that this is going to be a very interesting move for sure to see kind of how things play out. You're going to get to see a chance and opportunity for both these guys to work together through the remainder of the year as it begins in Michigan. And remember, he's just coming off having a top 5 not too long ago at Indianapolis. So having this new crew chief is going to be a very interesting move, to say the least. But I do think that with the new crew chief, we could see some pretty solid and great performances, hopefully. I think that this is a very good move, not a great move, but I do think that Kevin Walter, because he does have engineering experience working with Josh Berry, we'll see what ends up happening, and we'll see if Shane Van Gisbergen ends up struggling or ends up running well with his new crew chief going forward, and hopefully he isn't a step backwards. I do think he'll be good on road courses, but outside of that, I'm not sure how he's going to end up doing, to be honest with you. And now we're going ahead, jump on to the next story of today's episode as we're talking about Rockingham. Now, if you watched the Door Bumper Clear podcast this past week, yesterday, it was reported by multiple people, including Freddie Kraft, who were on that package. He says that Rockingham is expected to be on the NASCAR schedule in 2025. Now, will it be on the NASCAR Cup Series schedule? Freddie Kraft said no. That will be during the Easter break and will be when the NASCAR Cup Series is off. It will, however, be in ARCA, the Truck Series, and the Xfinity Series as well. And according to the reports, it sounds like that it'll be basically on the Saturday and the Friday, so it will not be racing on Sunday. There's obviously been rumors about this. We talked about this when Carson Osbar said this on one of his Twitch streams, where he said that he expected that Rockingham was going to be on the NASCAR schedule. But a lot of people thought when he said Rockingham was going to be on the schedule, it was going to be on the Cup Series schedule. So no one really believed him. Little did we know the Xfinity Series and Truck Series and ARCA 2 could end up returning there. Now, the last time NASCAR altogether raced at Rockingham was all the way back in 2013 when the Truck Series raced there. The driver won that race was Kyle Larson. And then the last time the Cup Series ran at Rockingham was in 2004. They were planning to run there in 2005, but obviously had the lawsuit that ended up happening. The Bernie Furco, or whatever that lawsuit name was, they got into a lawsuit, so Rockingham lost a date to Texas, among other things as well. But looking at Rockingham, I think this track will put on some really good racing for the Truck Series and the Xfinity Series as well. The Xfinity Series always, regardless of what type of track you go to, it doesn't matter. They always put on a very insane, a really fun and great product. And I think racing at Rockingham, where tires are going to get chewed up really quickly, because Rockingham is historically known for chewing up tires and grading tires, I think that that is going to put on a very excellent show. And I think the Truck Series also is going to put on a really great show as well. And I think it'll make drivers who are younger especially, have to learn how to manage their tires. I think that's a skill that these younger drivers, many of them are known for going very quick, but I think one skill that the younger drivers should be able to learn is tire management. And if that's one thing that we can teach the younger drivers in NASCAR to learn, so they're not going hard to the wall, I think that is a very, very good thing. We don't know when the schedule is expected to be released. There's been rumors as well about Lime Rock coming back next year for the lower series. There's rumors that there's going to be a swap where New Hampshire is going to go to the Truck Series and Xfinity is going to not have New Hampshire next year, but they're going to get Gateway in the Truck Series again. New Hampshire, there's rumors of Dover potentially hosting a day for the Truck Series again next year as well. There's a lot of big dominoes that are expected to take place and expected to fall throughout the rest of this year. When it comes to the schedule, we're waiting for the schedule to be released. We've been waiting for that for a couple months now. There's been rumors it could come out any time now. I don't know if it's going to come this week. I'd love for it to come this week, but Rockingham being on the schedule, I've been wanting it back on the schedule for years. I wish it was the All-Star race, but I'm glad to see it looks like it's going to get a points-paying race for the Xfinity Series, the Truck Series, and ARCA as well. I think it is going to put on a really solid and great product, especially, and nonetheless really exciting. Glad to see that Rockingham will be on the schedule for the lower series in 2025, meaning that all three series will be going, well, basically every week there'll be some sort of racing for NASCAR on the schedule. And now we're going ahead and jump on to the first of three major stories in today's episode as we're talking about NASCAR Cup Silly Season. Now, earlier today, after Erik Jones was announced he'll be returning to Legacy Motor Club, which we're going to talk about here in just a little bit, Bob Pockrass updated his article in regards to what he believes the lineup will look like for 2025. First, beginning with Hendrick Motorsports. They're expected to stay the same for 2025. We'll see Kyle Larson back in the 5 car, Chase Elliott in the 9, Alex Bowman will stay in the 48 car, and William Byron will stay in the 24 car. Hendrick Motorsport, not Hendrick, but Joe Gibbs Racing, you know that lineup isn't changing outside of Chase Briscoe going into 19. Denny Hamlin, of course, stay in the 11. We'll see Ty Gibbs in the 54 car, and of course, Christopher Bell in the 20. Let's next begin with 2311 Racing. They are expected to be a 3-car team in the 2025 season. Bubba Wallace, while it's not been officially announced, he is expected to return to 2311 Racing for 2025 and will likely sign a multi-year contract extension with the organization for next season. Bubba Wallace has had a really great stretch of races as of late. In the last 5 NASCAR Cup Series races, he's had 4 top 10 finishes, has had a couple top 5s during that time, and also, of course, is back in the playoffs currently at the moment. And he does bring a lot of sponsorship and funding as well. The big question is, who is going to get the 3rd seat? Well, according to reports, Riley Herbst is expected to get the 3rd seat for 2311 Racing for next year. Now, some of Mitch Carlos, Kurt Busch, but we do think that Riley Herbst will get the 3rd seat for 2311 Racing for 2025 with the monster funding, and of course, the Herbst family is working with that team as well. Bob also updates that Team Penske will not change for next year. He did officially confirm that Austin Cindric will be back with Team Penske for next year. They were talking about returning, but Austin Cindric had confirmed to Bob Pockrass at Richmond that he will be back in the 2 car for next year. That kind of got confirmed at Gateway, but Bob was able to make sure and clarify that, and we'll see Austin Cindric back in the number 2 car for the 2025 NASCAR Cup Series season. Moving on to Trackhouse Racing. We know Ross Chastain is staying in the 1 car for next year, and Daniel Suarez signed a multi-year or 1-year extension for the 99 car for 2025. Big question is who is going to get that 3rd seat. We think Shane Van Gisbergen is going to get the 3rd seat for Trackhouse Racing for 2025. We don't think Zane Smith's getting it anymore. Shane, in my opinion, is ready to make the move up to make the move up. The question is, when will they announce the charter? I imagine once the charter agreement does get finalized in some sort of capacity, or will be announced sooner rather than later, Shane Van Gisbergen will get the seat for 2025, more than likely with WeatherTech sponsoring more than likely as well, along with sponsoring Connor Zillage. This means Zane Smith more than likely will not be going to Trackhouse Racing next year, but he is in the running to join Front Row Motorsports for 2025. Now, Sam Mayer and Chandler Smith, according to Bob Pockrass, have emerged as candidates for that seat as well, but Zane Smith is the current lead candidate. Zane Smith was at Front Row for a few years, won the Truck Series Championship in 2022, and almost made the Final Four in 2023 before unfortunately having a disqualification at Homestead from some damage on his car. Zane Smith, I think it'd be really cool to see him back at Front Row. I don't know if Sam Mayer is ready to make the move over there. He could go to Spire potentially, Sam Mayer, but Chandler Smith's an interesting one, and we'll get to him here in just a little bit. Moving on to Rick Ware Racing. Ryan Preece is a candidate for Foy Racing for the 2025 season, but we do know that Corey LaJoie, with the rumors of Justin Haley potentially going over to Spire next year, Corey LaJoie could find his way over to the number 51 car for 2025. And then finally, Kaulig Racing. AJ Allmendinger, there's a good chance and possibility that he could be back in the NASCAR Cup Series for 2025, as their Xfinity program is expected to make some pretty major shakeups and changes coming very soon. And Ty Dillon is in the running for the 31 car for next year. Dale Hemmer could potentially return to the NASCAR Xfinity Series for 2025. And Ty Dillon, from what we understand, has had conversations to maybe go to Kaulig Racing full-time, considering he has made select starts this year in the NASCAR Cup Series for Kaulig Racing. I think there is a really great chance and a strong possibility that we could end up seeing Ty Dillon potentially headed over to Kaulig's Cup program for 2025. What we do know is a lot of these moves are expected to happen very, very soon, and probably by the end of this month, within the next 15 to 20 days, many of the major silly season moves for the NASCAR Cup Series are expected to be announced, and a lot of those moves are going to be coming very, very soon, which will be very interesting to follow. And now we're going to jump on to the next major story in today's episode, as we're talking about Erik Jones. Now, we already talked about this on the channel earlier today, but it was officially confirmed earlier today that Erik Jones has signed a multi-year contract extension with Legacy Motor Club to continue driving the number 43 car. He was not only signed for the 2025 season, but he's also signed for 2026 as well. Erik Jones had at one point been rumored to drive the number 7 car for Spire, but obviously that was not likely going to happen with the driver who will go over there, who we'll talk about here in just a second, who I think is headed over there. But Erik Jones' return to Legacy Motor Club makes a lot of sense. He's been with this team now technically for 4 years, when he joined them back in 2021, when it was still called Richard Petty Motorsports. Then, of course, he rebranded to Petty GMS Racing, and Erik Jones got a win in the number 43 car for the team and organization at the Southern 500. And then in 2023, they rebranded the Legacy. They had a down year, but Erik Jones, still near the end of the season, put up a really solid, had some really strong, great performances near the end of the year, and was very consistent and solid, all things considered. And then, of course, he's been this year a little bit down in performance. Yes, he did suffer that injury, which I think did affect him in some sort of way. But also Erik Jones himself as well. He has put up some really good performances. He got a top 10 at Pocono and has shown at times good pace and speed. And early in the year, he was fighting for a top 16 position in the points. And at one point, John Hunter was ahead of him. So what are my expectations going into 2025 for Erik Jones and for the next couple of years? So I'm not sure if that second year is going to be an option year for Erik Jones or if it's going to be a one-year deal. My prediction is that Erik Jones is going to improve next year. I don't think Erik Jones is going to make the playoffs like I had predicted early in the years. I really thought the Toyota partnership was really going to be able to pull them up and put them in contention to make the playoffs. But I think Erik Jones will contend for a top 20 in the standings next year, and I do think he improves his top 5 and top 10 runs. And I think he will have a really great chance and opportunity to win some super speed races, and also could win the Southern 500 or the Goodyear 400 as well. Because I think he is a really good driver at Darlington. Darlington is his best racetrack in NASCAR, and I could see him also running good at Texas because he had pace and speed there last year as well. And I think Erik Jones will get a top 20 finish. And I think for 2026, if he doesn't make the playoffs in 2025, I think he has a fantastic chance and a really strong opportunity to make it in 2026. Because I think Legacy is going to get better. The big thing for Legacy, don't keep hiring people and keep changing things. You just hired Jacob Cantor, keeping your organization going forward. We also know that John Hunter Nemechek will also be back in the 42 car for Legacy Motor Club next year. We do not know what's going on with the 84 car. There's a chance that that car might be gone for sure altogether, but we could see Jimmy Johnson run the Daytona 500, though they may just focus on 2 cars full-time next year. What does this mean for Corey Heim? He had been linked to the 43 car at one point. Well, I think Corey Heim stays in the Truck Series next year, driving for Tricon Garage, or goes to Sam Hunt Racing. It does sound like more than likely he is going to stay in the Truck Series next year, according to Door Bumper Clear. He had been in the running for the 43 car. Well, the other big thing to talk about is the 7 car. So there was talk about Erik Jones going to the 7, but obviously that did not happen. So who are the other candidates for the number 7 car for next year? Obviously, Justin Haley's the favorite. Gordon Bianchi's brought it up. I've brought it up here on the channel multiple times. We do think that Justin Haley could be a candidate for the 7 car, but they also mentioned there's another driver that's unknown that could go over there. Some have said Kyle Busch, but we do think Kyle Busch more than likely is going to be back at RCR next year as they made some competition moves, and there's some other big competition moves coming for the team as well. And we also do expect that there's other drivers like Sam Mayer, Zane Smith, though Zane Smith can head over to the front row. There's some other drivers that are unknown at this point who could be getting behind the wheel. I think there's a lot of big dominoes that are expected to fall going into the future, like I mentioned earlier. But I am glad to say that Erik Jones will be back with Legacy Motor Club in 2025, because I do think that Erik Jones has done a great job with the organization and team. He's earned the right and opportunity to stay with the team and organization. He's helped build up, and I think that 43 car will be a lot better next year with Erik Jones staying behind the wheel, and I'm glad they got a multi-year deal done with him so he can stay in the 43 car for 2025. I do expect him to get better in 2025 as well. And now we're going ahead, jump on to the final major story of today's episode as we're talking about NASCAR Xfinity Series and Truck Series silly season. Now, I've already talked about the Cup side of NASCAR silly season, but last night on Door Bumper Clear, there was a lot of very interesting things that were noted, not just for the Truck Series silly season, but also for the NASCAR Xfinity Series silly season as well. First, NASCAR Prophecy had actually reported on this. It sounds like Brandon Jones will not be returning to Junior Motorsports for 2025. Bob Poggers had initially reported that Brandon Jones most likely was going to be out of the team at the end of this year. Now, Brandon Jones has had a very lackadaisical year in the number 9 car, unfortunately, though he's had some good performances. He's been outperformed by Sam Mayer most of the year and Justin Allgaier on a consistent basis all year as well, though he's been kind of similar to Sammy Smith in performance this year. And obviously, with Connor Zilisch going into the team next year, this isn't a major shock or surprise. So if Brandon Jones isn't returning to Junior Motorsports next year, where does he end up going? It sounds like Brandon Jones is going to be going back to a former team he drove for just 2 years ago, Joe Gibbs Racing. Joe Gibbs Racing is expected to bring Brandon Jones back to drive either the number 19 car or the number 18 car for 2025. Brandon Jones has sponsorship from Menards, and I think Joe Gibbs wants to bring Brandon Jones back in the fold. And say what you say about how bad he's performed at Junior Motorsports as of recently, Brandon Jones has done a very good job at JGR in the past. Remember, he almost made the championship for just 2 years ago, which is why when he went over to Junior Motorsports, I really thought he was going to set the world on fire over there, but obviously that did not end up happening. So it sounds like that Brandon Jones could be going over there next year. So what happens with Joe Gibbs Racing? Well, it sounds like Chandler Smith and Sheldon Creed are also not going to be back at Joe Gibbs Racing in 2025. Chandler Smith already kind of talked about this, but he's been linked to Foy Motorsports in the NASCAR Cup Series for next year. But there's also a chance and possibly that it can move on to another team, like Sam Hunt Racing perhaps, and he also go to a team like maybe RCR or some other organization like Kaulig, who's expected to make some pretty big moves for next year. We don't know where Chandler's going. This definitely shocked me for sure. Sheldon Creed, this does not surprise me. There's rumors and speculation that Sheldon Creed is a candidate to go to the Haas factory team. He's one of about 5 or 6 drivers. It seems like the new number 5 car at this point on who is going to go to the 5 car, the 48 car. Obviously, there's been drivers like Haley Deegan rumored, Ryan Preece, Harrison Burton, and even Christian Eckes and Matt DiBenedetto have been rumored for the seat. Sheldon does bring some sponsorship from his grandfather, and I would imagine that the funding that he has could bring him over to the Haas factory team for 2025. What does it mean for Joe Gibbs Racing and the other drivers? It sounds like Taylor Gray and William Sawash are going to be joining Joe Gibbs Racing in the Xfinity Series next year. William will be making his Xfinity Series debut in the number 19 car for them at Homestead Miami Speedway, and William has been linked to go full-time for them in 2025. As he will turn 18 years old this year in October and will run the final 4 Xfinity Series races. I don't know how Williams going to do. He's kind of struggling when guys like Connor Zilisch have raced, but he's also won a lot of ARCA races, but he hasn't had as much competition when he's ran in those series. As for Taylor Gray, this also does not shock and surprise me. Taylor Gray's been driving for this team, and Taylor, honestly, has had some really good stand-up performances driving for Joe Gibbs Racing, and I think him going full-time with Joe Gibbs Racing would be a very good move, and I think he would be a pretty big contender to win some races. That's why they're making the crew chief changes, is I think they're trying to get him prepped and ready ready to go and trying to see what crew chiefs are going to work very, very well with him for 2025. Working with the 20 crew chief, I could see him in the number 20 as well for 2025. Now, Corey LaJoie, let's move on and talk about him for a second. There are rumors of multiple teams he can go to. The 51 car for Foy Racing in the NASCAR Cup Series, with rumors of Justin Haley potentially going to Spire for 2025. Corey LaJoie could potentially be added to the 51 car for Foy Racing next year. Or, as Door Bumper Clear actually mentioned, he could also potentially be going to the 19 truck for McAnally Hilgeman Racing. He apparently has a really good opportunity in the Truck Series for next year. Bray Carter mentioned this in one of his videos as well, that Corey LaJoie could be headed back to the Truck Series. I think him and McAnally, he would absolutely do very, very well. Now, he is going to make less money driving the 19 car than the 51 car, but do you want to be competing for a championship where this 19 truck with Christian Eckes has ran very well, or do you want to run mediocre in the Cup Series and run worse than Justin Haley has done in that car? I'm going to take the opportunity and chance to rebuild my career and go down to the lower series and try to improve my craft, because I do think that 19 truck is a lot better than people lead on to. So if, let's say he goes to the 19 truck, what happens with Christian Eckes? This is the main point. It sounds like Christian Eckes is going to be headed to Kaulig Racing in the NASCAR Xfinity Series in 2025. We know that the Couch Racer kind of mentioned this. It's ran by Freddie Kraft and, of course, Brett Griffin. And people behind the scenes have noted this, and Bob has noted as well, that he's been working on trying to get an Xfinity Series deal for 2025. Christian Eckes has set the world on storm in the Truck Series this year. He's been very impressive. He's had some really big standout and great performances this year overall. And I think that Christian Eckes has a really great chance and a strong opportunity to win the Truck Series championship this year. Had he made the Final Four last year, he would have won the title because he won at Phoenix after the chaos of where 4 or 5 different cautions happened and all the chaos happened. But Christian had probably the fastest truck in that race and got the victory done. I think Christian Eckes in a Kaulig ride would be absolutely huge. There is a chance that Sam Mayer could end up over at this team next year as well. I'm not sure about Josh Williams. We do think Daniel Hemmer can head over to their Xfinity program next year, and we do think that other guys could be on the move, like AJ Allmendinger back up to the Cup Series, and Derek Kraus could be over here as well. As for Christian Eckes, I think he's going to do a really solid job for sure, and I think Christian Eckes at Kaulig would be a pretty massive big move for their Xfinity program, as I think he would do as good as Chandler Smith's done, and I think he would be a championship threat and championship contender at this organization and this team next year if he was to go here. So, that is it for today's NASCAR news and motorsports news video. I want to thank you guys for watching. Please subscribe to the channel, notifications on, so if I win a video, it does go live on my channel. Follow me on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram, and support on Patreon as well. Links description below that, and comment your thoughts below on today's episode. If you think Christian Eckes ends up at Kaulig, let me know your thoughts in the comments below. And how do you think Erik Jones is going to do at Legacy next year? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Later today on the channel, whenever the announcement officially comes out, we'll have the Austin Dillon penalty report and the Joey Logano penalty report as well. We're also going to have the Xfinity Series race picks for Michigan as well. Then on Thursday, we'll have Cup Series race picks for Michigan, and we'll also have the paint skin video as well. Friday, we're going to have a NASCAR news video wrapping up news for the week, and we got a lot of great content dropping this week as we head to Michigan. So anyways, like I said, I want to thank you guys for watching today's episode, and I'll see you guys next time for more great, awesome NASCAR content and other motorsports content on the channel like this. Take care, everybody.